Hello and welcome. Every conflict is meant to have an endgame. So what's the international coalition planning for Libya's final scenario? The forces of Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi are being directly targeted, but so far there's been no mention of regime change. The US, France and Britain have successfully enforced a UN Security Council approved no-fly zone over Libya to stop Muammar Gaddafi's air force from attacking rebels. But many are wondering if those airstrikes will be enough to deter the defiant leader and whether or not international troops are needed on the ground to push back Libyan government forces. Complicating matters is a growing chorus of criticism from a number of nations, including Turkey, China, India and Russia, whose Prime Minister Vladimir Putin described the UN resolution as a, quote, medieval call to crusade. Also, the Arab League Secretary General Amr Moussa condemned the scope of the bombings before eventually backing down. So today we ask, how can the international coalition opposing Muammar Gaddafi bring peace to Libya without getting caught in a prolonged military conflict? Remember, you can join our conversation with your questions and comments. You can send an SMS or an email, and we also take your phone calls on the show. In just a few minutes, we'll be debating the situation there in Libya with a former US colonel and one of Muammar Gaddafi's former ambassadors. But first to US Democratic Congressman Denis Kucinich, who's been very critical of President Barack Obama's decision to strike Libya. He's joining us from Capitol Hill. Congressman, thank you very much for joining us, sir.
Thank you.
So you say President Obama was wrong to order military action without the approval of Congress. Why and what would be the potential consequences of this action?
Our Constitution makes it very clear that the power to declare war and to send troops into action rests with the Congress of the United States, not with the President. The President cannot determine on his own unilaterally to send troops or to send armed forces into conflict unless there's an actual or immediate threat, imminent threat, and he didn't make the case on that. And so this is unconstitutional, what President Obama has done.
Sir, would you describe this, what he has done, as an act of war?
Well, it is an act of war, there's no question about it. When you send over 100 Tomahawk missiles to 124 different sites, when you have 82,000-pound bombs that are to be dropped, when you are talking about establishing a zone that no one else can fly through from Libya, you know, if that's not an act of war, I don't know what is.
Well, sir, President Obama has defended his decision for military action in Libya. This is what he had to say. Listen to this.
When the entire international community, almost unanimously, says that there is a potential humanitarian crisis about to take place, that a leader who has lost his legitimacy decides to turn his military on his own people, that we can't simply stand by with empty words, that we have to take some sort of action.
Now, listening to what the President had to say there, Congressman, I wonder, how would you have proposed he move forward? I mean, especially with how desperate things were getting in Libya, with Muammar Gaddafi's forces directly targeting those the rebels now.
Well, you know, first of all, you have to keep in mind that, that Brazil, Russia, India, China, and Germany did not participate in this. Also keep in mind that our Constitution requires that before any international action is agreed upon, it has to be approved here at home. Now, the United States doesn't have the authority to intervene unilaterally in any nation. There's problems all over the world. There's problems in Yemen, problems in Bahrain. We're not sending our military forces there. We don't have the ability, nor, may I say, the right, to begin to intervene anywhere we well please. That was a mistake that the United States made in Iraq, in Afghanistan, and it's a mistake that's being made in Libya.
So what are the potential consequences for President Obama if he has stepped outside the boundaries of the Constitution?
Well, the first thing Congress has to do, and I'm proposing an amendment when we come back, to strike the funding for the Libyan intervention. Congress needs to regain its authority here. Beyond that, you know, the President went outside the Constitution, but the dogs of war are already unleashed. You can't stop a war once it starts, at least not that easily. And so I think there might be political implications, but it's going to take a while to sort this out.
I'm going to put an email to you from one of our viewers, if I may, sir. This came in from Riz Sibanala, who says, the case of Libya is more like the Balkans than Iraq. The West is right to intervene. Your response?
Well, you know, I'm a member of the United States Congress. You have to come to Congress before you make that choice. If Congress approves it, then we can go forward. But if Congress doesn't, that intervention, as far as the United States is concerned, is unconstitutional. If we don't abide by our rules here, if it's just anything goes, then the very democracy that we talk about wanting to export to other places may not exist in our own country if we don't abide by our Constitution.
Why, sir, do you think the debate hadn't gone to Congress yet? Is it just a question of timing, question of desperate situation?
Well, let's look at it this way. Let's look at timing. The Obama administration had time to go to the Arab League, which of course now backtracking, had time to go to the UN, time to talk to NATO, time to talk to Great Britain and France, but no time to talk to the United States Congress. Come on, they had no intention of consulting with Congress. And so this then becomes a constitutional crisis of an executive who feels that he can act and arrogate to himself powers that are not properly his under the United States Constitution.
In your opinion, sir, just a thought, how long do you see America being involved in this situation? I know you said you're planning your amendment, but how long before the American people no longer tolerate it either?
Well, there's two questions there. First of all, how long is this likely to last? And second is, how long the American people will tolerate this.
Right.
The first part, look, once you unleash the dogs of war, you don't know when they're going to come home. So there's no answer to the first part. The second part, the people of America are already tired of spending all this money on wars. Iraq will cost us over $3 trillion. Afghanistan has already cost close to $500 billion. This war against Libya will cost $100 million a day, we're told. We're cutting our domestic programs here. We have 50 million people without health care. 10 million people have lost their homes. We have 15 million people without jobs. And we have money for war, but not for our domestic agenda. So this is going to be an increasingly vexing political climate in the United States, and we're stretching our armies so thin. I mean, we're now on 4 different fronts, including Pakistan.
Now, presumably you're heartened by the fact that France is stepping up much more, and Arab nations are also getting more involved in this. It looks like the pressure may be a little bit off America to have to be steering this.
Well, I would say to that, mais non, because I don't know enough yet about France's justification for jumping in against Colonel Gaddafi, and I need to study that a little bit more. So I'm not saying that I approve of anything with respect to what's happening in the war against Libya.
Congressman Denis Kucinich, I thank you very much for your time, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, let's go to our panel now. Here with me in the studio is the former Libyan ambassador to the US, Ali Suleiman Aujali, and he's currently the representative of the Libyan National Transitional Council to Washington. Also with me is Sam Gardner, a retired US Air Force colonel who has taught strategy and operations at several military colleges in the United States. Gentlemen, I welcome you both to the show.
Thank you.
Colonel, I'm going to start with you and just ask first, was the US president wrong to move forward with this, and considering what we heard the congressman say?
Well, I think moving forward without a clear objective was what's wrong. Remember Colin Powell said after Vietnam, don't go to war unless you have a clear understanding of what you're going to do and what you're going to get out of it. And if you heard the president talk, he talked about the inputs. The input was support by the international community. But what was the output? I mean, we haven't really talked about that. Nobody's addressed it. And the frightening thing is it seems as if different capitals have a different understanding of the output. And that's scary moving forward.
Then what would be the end game, in your opinion, sir?
Well, it's important to understand that there's so much difference in the end games. You know, the Brits have said that they're willing to go after all of the military infrastructure. The British Minister of Military Affairs said he was willing to put boots on the ground. Not an occupation force, but boots on the ground. My impression is that the Brits are willing to go in for a regime change. Clearly, you've heard from the United States that that's not the objective. You've heard from the United States to protect civilians. More consistent with what the resolution said than some of the interpretations we're getting from Europe.
Colonel, email to you, if I may, came from Kenya, from one of our viewers, from Fares Ngoje from Mombasa, who says, the liberation of Libya should be left to Libyans. Western nations would be right to implement sanctions, but military action jeopardizes the Libyan revolution. Do you think this could become one of America's wars?
I don't think so, because I think, as reading today's press, the United States is about to, as they would say in the airplane business, pull chocks. They're about to withdraw from the operation to the extent they've been. And again, it goes back to, I think that, and you hear Secretary Gates talking, that he's afraid of some of the things he's hearing out of the Europeans. Turn it over to the Europeans. I have to say also that in my mind, it is a Libyan civil war. It is not the democracy movement, it is a Libyan civil war.
Well, Ambassador, I am honoured to have you on the show as well. I left it to this moment to talk to you because I wanted you to hear the opinion of the Congressman and of the Colonel as well. First of all, a civil war, not an uprising. How do you regard that?
Well, I think this is completely wrong to say a civil war in Libya. This is a regime killing his people. Civil war, that's between different sectors from the population. But this is a regime who put his arms and his weapons against his own people. Then this is not a civil war at all. And the second thing, that the United Nations Security Council is very clear. They have to protect civilians against their own regime who is killing them. Then the mission of the United Coalition forces to protect Libyans. But how do they protect Libyans? They have to protect Libyans from the airstrike. But who giving the order to the commander of the army to hit? Then Gaddafi. As far as Gaddafi he is in power, as far as Gaddafi can order, then Libyan civilians are not safe. And the second thing I want to mention, that since I came here, just forget about 2004. We always hear, and in the United States policy, that people, they have to raise against the dictatorship. Then you are encouraging us. If you cannot support us while we are raising against this regime, then why encourage us? You put the nation, the people against the fire, and then you said this is your sake, then you have to face it. And the other thing, we are not asking America or Europe to pay our own bill. We have our own money. We will pay our bill. We're not charging the Congress to pay this, or the American government, or the other nations.
Ambassador, how do you regard the complication, though, that if America does get involved, if the Western allies do get involved, that suddenly it's no longer the people's war, that no longer is it a grassroots uprising, it's something that's being directed by the West, and it loses its legitimacy then?
Why it is legitimacy? It was a peaceful demonstration, started by ordinary people, started by lawyers, started by doctors, started by students, after they are suffering for 42 years. Then this propaganda we've been hearing from the West to protect democracy and to protect the people and to help them to overthrow this dictatorship, then this is just only propaganda. And when we are facing our sake, then you just look to us from distance and say this is against the Congress, this is against the Constitution. This is not, there is no time now to talk about Constitution. This decision has been taken by the Security Council. And we're not Afghanistan or Iraq. Afghanistan or Iraq, they've been invaded. Libya, the people, they were screaming day and night to save them. If the French didn't strike the 400 tankers they came from west to attack Tripoli, then believe me, on Sunday that we will have more than 150,000 people being killed by this regime. Then Srebrenica, then Rwanda, and then you want to see another massacre happening to the Libyan people.
All right,
this is not fair.
I'm going to get back to you in a second as well, but let me get a couple of callers on the line. Issa's on the line from Switzerland. Issa, go ahead, please.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, Riz.
Hi, go ahead.
Hello. My question is related about the European and American intervention in Libya. I see here a double standard. Why the West is indifferent to what's happening in Bahrain, and why they are intervening in Libya.
Issa, okay, that's a good question. I'm going to ask Colonel Sam Gardner here. Sir, this is one of the things that's raised, is it seems different actions for different environments, but here there seems to be a double standard according to
and he didn't mention Yemen. Why not Yemen? Clearly that's a question to be asked. And the danger is, and the real danger is, that this kind of intervention not only is inconsistent, that's okay, we could deal with inconsistency, but it may encourage those in other countries to, we get a few thousand people killed, and the Americans will come in our side. It could start a dangerous kind of fire in the whole Middle East. So, I agree, it's a bad thing.
Well, Kuba's on the line from Connecticut. Go ahead, Kuba.
Yes, unlike most of the commentators I've been hearing of late, I've been to Libya. I first went to Libya in 1968 as an airman in the Royal Air Force. And the last time I've been is in 1994. Okay. Now, the issue primarily, and I've seen major transformation in Libya under Colonel Gaddafi's government, But the really issue is that I really want to tackle here is the simple issue is this. Why have we not been hearing anything about the tribalism in Libya, which is a fundamental ingredient of that society? And most of all, in 2007, we actually heard General Wesley Clark, it's actually up on the net, calling the plan, said that the United States government in the Pentagon said that they're going to take down seven actually governments in the Middle East, Libya being one of these countries.
All right,
So really,
Kuba, let me, thanks for your point. Actually, let me get the ambassador to respond. Libya suddenly came onto the scene for a lot of people. They knew very little about the country. Information wasn't very forthcoming for quite a few years. And as Kuba points out, people don't know about the tribalism and the conflicts perhaps that were within the country. Explain that, please.
Well, Libya is a traditional society. We have tribes, yes. Unfortunately, both regime, the monarchy and the Gaddafi's regime, they don't permit the formation of the political parties. But Libya, from the east to west, north to south, they are supporting the new interim council, which is taking care of the domestic and foreign relations. Now, the uprising in Libya, if it is being supported by the Libyan, if the Libyans asking the international community to help them, what is wrong with that? You have to be aware of the propaganda directed by Gaddafi media that this is the Al-Qaeda. These people who are protesting, they are on the drugs. This is nobody can believe it. Al-Qaeda, then if they are in Libya, then they came during Gaddafi's regime. If they are on the drugs, those drugs being imported by Gaddafi's regime.
Let me ask you one thing, sir. How determined, knowing Muammar Gaddafi as you do, how determined do you think he is to see this through to the end, whatever the cost?
Well, I think, unfortunately, this kind of voices I'm hearing today, that will give him a chance just to relax a little bit. Then where is the humanity? We've been talking the West all the time about the humanity about the human rights.
But I mean, does he have an out? Do you think he will step down? Is there any chance he will step down?
Gaddafi will not step down.
Ever.
Gaddafi will never step down. Gaddafi has no place to go. Gaddafi has no friends. Gaddafi is losing power. He is losing land. He is losing confidence of the international community. If Gaddafi stay behind, not only the Libyan people will suffer now, the international community, especially the coalition, they will be suffer more than the Libyans. You have to put this in mind when you're talking about the military action against this regime. Right. You will be suffer more than us, and wait and see if this has happened, you know.
So I'm going to get a call in here from Washington. Ward is on the line with us. Ward, go ahead, please.
Yes, I would like to know, as far as Gaddafi, we're offering him no way out. In other words, you understand, even if he wanted to leave the country, like the ambassador just said, what are we going to do, I'm saying, after, if Gaddafi falls?
Right.
I mean, are we going to do this for every regime? I mean, I just don't understand.
Interesting point, Ward, and I'm going to ask the Colonel to address this. If there is no get out for Muammar Gaddafi, it seems like it's almost like a predetermined end game.
We boxed him in. I think that one of the mistakes from the very beginning was to have him referred to the criminal court. That left him only jail time or death, and so I think we forced him into a corner, and I think he will respond the way the ambassador suggested.
And Colonel, an email that came in, actually, if I may put it for you, from a viewer by the name of Ahmed, who wrote in with a critical comment. He says, where was the West when millions were being killed in Congo, Darfur, Sudan, Ethiopia and Somalia? Do they only feel the pain of the oil-rich nations? And of course this does send a bad message out.
It does, and that's a valid question. The answer to it is the United States can't respond to everything, but in a sense of the list of moral issues in the world, I have to say Libya is not at the top. There are many more crises that ought to be dealt with.
Ambassador, there's an interesting question that came in by email, and I'm going to put this one to you. It says, it's from Mohammed Shoman from Ontario in Canada. It says, where are the Arab armies? Why do we have to keep depending on Western forces while cursing them as imperialists behind their backs?
Well, I think this question, he knows the answer. He knows the answer already. The Arab, they will never have a power that they can keep security in the Arab countries. We are very happy to see the Arabs supporting us on the last meeting of the Arab League. Then, if they support the Libya request, we are grateful to them, but we do not. Unfortunately, we cannot ask the Arab to protect the Libyan from Gaddafi.
One more question for you, Ambassador. This came in by email from North Carolina in the USA from Fahad Subzwari, who says, What made the Arab League change its stance and back the UN and NATO in the Libya action? And I wonder how you regard Amr Musa's toing and froing on this.
Well, unfortunately, I have to tell you, Libyan blood is not a commercial commodity, you know. And I think Amr Musa, he correct himself, because I don't know why he's using this contradiction statement. And the other thing I want to mention before, as far as I have the time, that please do not compare between Egypt, Tunisia and Bahrain. None of these leaders use the force, airplane strike, weapons, heavy machines, tanks against his own people.
This is actually frustrating for you, no doubt, because there's 4 different scenarios here, but they're all being lumped together. Yeah. As far as the media, I presume you see that they're all reporting them.
I mean, I cannot find basis to compare between what's going in Bahrain, what's going in Libya. You see, Bahrain until now, they don't use aircraft, they don't use heavy weapons. In Egypt and Tunisia, when their leaders, they find out themselves they're not accepted by their people, then they resign. This man, he been killing the Libyan people for the last 4 weeks, and he never thinking about resign. Then Gaddafi, they gave him the option, then please, if you want to leave, you can go. But he refused. Then he has an option to go to Venezuela, to go to Nicaragua. These people were supporting Gaddafi killing his own people.
Ambassador, you were saying about the changing mood and how that perhaps has given Muammar Gaddafi breathing space. Now here, as I mentioned earlier in the show, nations such as Turkey, India, China and Russia have been critical of the strikes and the sentiment that has been echoed by many leaders around the world. So let's listen to what Bolivia's President Evo Morales had to say.
We ask for an immediate halt in the invasion and armed aggression against Libya, and we propose a high-level international commission headed by the United Nations Secretary General, the Arab League, and the African Union to mediate and peacefully resolve the problems in Libya.
Colonel, isn't there a chance here, listening to that, how these countries are now taking a different stance, that the world is in danger of becoming polarized over Libya in what's already a complicated situation?
I think it is, and I think part of that may have been due to the fact that the first night of the operation seemed almost too much. 124 cruise missiles. You know, it seemed like it was disproportionate to what the objective of the UN resolution was, and that has pushed people in corners. And to the point now that only Qatar is the only Arab country providing forces. 4 airplanes. All the rest who were going to sign up are now doing humanitarian aid.
Ambassador, a quick thought. Do you think the Qatari planes that are now involved, do you think they're mandated or willing to pull the trigger if they have to?
Look,
or is it for show?
The main thing for us from the Arab countries is the moral support. That's what we need from them, and they're doing it. And the Arab and some other, the Qatar and some other countries, they are supporting us. Then this is the first time that the Arab League, they stand behind the people. And that's we have to be appreciated. I think the Western strategists, they know that the Arab cannot be a main factor to decide how this war is going on.
Let's quickly squeeze in a call from Qatar, who got Ahmed on the line. Ahmed, thanks for your patience.
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
Yes, I would like to have a word in this debate.
Very quickly.
We are big brothers. We Libyans, we praise highly the moral responsibility taken place by the powerful countries there, as they see all screens are showing our people are slaughtered every day, every second, every third. This butcher has already committed a genocide.
Okay, Ahmed, because we've only got 30 seconds, I want to give the ambassador a chance to just give me an idea of how long do you think this will last? How long before you find some resolution?
Well, I think we don't want this operation to last long. The time is very important factor. This regime must go. Gaddafi must go. There is no other option. He is dangerous for everybody. He's dangerous for the Libyan. He's dangerous for the international community, and the correlation they must strike now to get rid of from this regime. This is part of their responsibility. This is part of the Security Council, and that to keep Libyan people safe from this man.
And Colonel, just a thought from you, a quick thought. 20 seconds. What do you see as the end game now, then?
I do not think the end game will be the coalition supporting the end of Gaddafi. I'm sorry. Don't count on Americans to do that. That's a Libyan problem.
Well, Colonel Sam Garland, Ambassador, thank you, gentlemen, for your part in this. Thank you. Thank you for being with us, too. On the next show, NATO is preparing to hand over local power to local security forces in Afghanistan, but is the country ready to take charge of its own future? Make sure you tune in for that. From me and the team, we'll see you next time.